another Turning Point USA alumni and friend here of the network is Congresswoman Paulina Luna. We had an opportunity to speak with her earlier, and she had some thoughts not only on this day, but some breaking news right here at Right Side Broadcasting regarding the intelligence community. Joining us at the live desk, Congresswoman Paulina Luna from the free Sunshine State of Florida. Thank you for joining us to remember Charlie Kirk, especially given our 10 years overlapping at Turning Point USA. Any fond memories that you have from your work with Charlie and his 32nd birthday culminating in the Medal of Freedom? What a high honor from President Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know Charlie, and I keep saying it, but I really wish that he could be here today to see the accomplishments that President Trump has just been able to do, especially because he was such an advocate for peace, especially in the Middle East, specifically with Gaza and Israel. But one of my favorite memories is actually the first debate that we did together actually at a campus in Portland, Oregon. And so I was sitting down with him literally at a fold-out table and a sign that said there are only two genders, and he had an ice hat on, and that is kind of Charlie's MO, is that he would always basically draw people in to debate them and have them really genuinely present if they had better ideas. And to this date, I actually never saw a debate where Charlie lost. So I think that he's going to be going down in history as one of the greatest debaters and really civil rights leaders of our time.
And watching you and Charlie debate on these campuses, bringing such respect to the other side, it was really quite a sight to see. And I remember as staff, Charlie always said, hey, we're going to have some heckles here. Let's always make sure that those who especially disagree with us actually feel comfortable, because we want the conversation to continue, whether it was a public campus, a private campus, all the way to those in between. And those were fun events, whether it be Campus Clash.
Oh, yeah. He would have people jump to the front of the line. He'd say, if you disagree, come to the front of the line.
Right. It was outstanding. And those are always fond memories. Now let's talk about the current situation regarding peace in the Middle East. This is something that I don't even think people could have recognized from the Camp David Accords, the Abraham Accords, now to what truly looks to be lasting peace. And thank God those 20 last remaining hostages coming back. We now know we have some of the bodies returned of the 28 that remain and are still being searched for. How do you see this happening? Does Congress help with this governing board to really demilitarize Hamas in the next steps?
I think most certainly, but I also think that there's going to be an aspect of at least enabling American nonprofits and individuals who want to go in and help with relief efforts, especially with rebuilding in Gaza. I think that that's been a very strong statement from the president, and something that we should all get behind, because essentially what's happened in the Gaza region is it's basically rubble, and an effort to actually provide some sense of life and something for these people to be able to go back to, and really, I think, help push out some of the radical ideologies that are really holding control in that region. You have to give these people something to hope for, right? And so I think President Trump has pointed out there's going to be many countries coming in to help rebuild that region, and he wants to see lasting peace. And so that's been my perspective. I think that that's a great perspective that this administration has. But ultimately, too, going forward, the one thing that President Trump always did well is that, if the United States is going to provide aid, we also expect the countries that are taking the aid to ensure that our policies and what we want essentially is carried through in that region. And so President Trump has been a peacemaker, and he is definitely the type to hold both sides accountable and hold true to that peace treaty. And so I'm very happy to have him in office.
Yes, we are very blessed to have President Trump in office. God is not done with our republic yet, nor is he done with Israel and peace for the Middle East. I mean, this day coming together of people, like he said, this has been 3,000 years in the making, so it's rather remarkable. I was somewhat surprised to see the name of Tony Blair on the list for this board of governors, and President Trump said aboard Air Force One. Yes, I like Tony. I have to look more into Tony, but of course we know he shared former President George W. Bush's philosophy of exporting democracy through force with preemptive wars. Do you think that because of the history with Iraq that might, in a way, not help with having a governing board with the former Prime Minister of the UK, Tony Blair, sitting on that?
Well, the UK is, I think, in a lot of hot water from a lot of their positions in wars. We know that also, too, the UK had really pressured, I think, at the asking of the Biden administration for Ukraine to not take a peace deal with Russia. And that was 2 years ago. So this is not the first time. But I think going back to your initial question, that's a bit concerning. I think anytime that you have any individual or any government or member of government advocating for war instead of peace, you always should look as to why they're doing that. And so I think right now you're actually seeing a massive amount of war fatigue with the American people. And I think members of Congress too, there are still a select group of us that are anti-war as a first means of dealing with something. And so I think, that perspective is a healthy perspective to have. Why would you advocate for a situation or a conflict that can get many people hurt when you can have peace talks first?
Yes, and speaking of peace talk, sometimes it's with the Democrats on the other side of the aisle. What are some of those next steps to potentially reopening the government? Because I think House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Republican leadership really knocking it out of the park on this and saying we passed the clean CR. Of course, we want to move beyond this, something that we've really seen since 1998, where more and more CRs have been used instead of opening the government up in a more robust way. So it leaves leadership really demanding of younger congresswomen and congressmen as yourself to kind of be on the sidelines. And that's sad to see that. Perhaps that process will change. But there's no question this is a clean CR. The Democrats want health care funded by the American people to go to illegal aliens. So how do you see this as perhaps an opportunity to reopen it? And hopefully Senator Chuck Schumer will kind of get back and actually play ball and want to work for the American people.
Well, I don't think Schumer wants to do that. I think that they're right now interesting some of their lists of demands. I think we saw 2.7 million for locust research in Africa. I mean, some of the lists of demands that they have, LGBTQI plus funding for different programs in the Balkans. I mean, it's literally insane what they have in some of their requests and demands for reopening the government. And so what's actually, from what I'm hearing on our side of things, is that, there's no reason for the administration to be forced to negotiate with people that are simply not even making sense for what they're requesting. Because this is not on behalf of the American people. This is for other countries, to be clear, and for people that haven't paid into our system. And so I'm perfectly fine with what the administration and perspective is doing and saying that, look, the Democrats are refusing to work on behalf of the American people. And I think, thank goodness we have Russ Vought in the current position that we do, because there are certain programs, there are certain projects that are specifically in these blue states that the Democrats have written in basically as re-election pet projects. And so I think that they need to start looking at cutting that funding too, because if they're not going to be honest with the American people, they're using taxpayer dollars to essentially buy their re-elections. I mean, we shouldn't be forced to play that game. And frankly, they're actually costing the American people more of a deficit every single day. And so that's why the administration made the announcement that some of those federal workers that are being let go are not going to be returning. But again, the American government is bloated. I think a lot of people realize that even though government shut down, their daily lives have not changed. But there are certain programs that we do need to ensure maintain funding. And President Trump has done a brilliant job using the reciprocal tariff pot of money that he has had, for example, to fund the programs like women, infant, and children that the Democrats were so easily able to let loose funding to. And so what we're hoping to see happen is that they do come to their senses. But I will say that from what I'm hearing, not just out of chatter out of the White House, but then also among some of my Democrat colleagues, is that they're not anticipating that this is going to be resolved in the next week or so, or even by the end of the month. So I think this is going to go into November.
Yes, billions of dollars being wasted because of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in this temper tantrum they're having, because that's the thing about their messaging, Congresswoman. It's that, oh, the Republicans don't want to debate and dialogue this. But what that really translates to is either you put this in the CR or we're going to do just this. And I thought they were against the filibuster of all things on the Senate side. So we'll see how this all develops in the coming days, and hopefully it does not take weeks and into the holidays. But you've been very focused on the task force on the declassification of federal secrets, and that's all working with Chairman Comer on the Oversight Committee. Can you give us any new developments on what's maybe taking place from the intelligence community?
I actually have a very big one. Yeah, so actually I have a very, very big one. I just found out earlier today that for the first time since the assassination of Kennedy, that the Russian government has agreed to deliver documents pertaining to their independent investigation into who killed JFK. What's been interesting about that is in the 90s, when Congress tried to obtain those documents, the Russian government denied those documents to them, and they are actually hand delivering those to us. And so that will be uploaded. We're going to be doing it through the Mary Farrell Foundation. I'm also going to be giving a copy to the National Archives. And we actually are bringing on people that can translate those documents so the American people can see what the parallel investigation from foreign intelligence actually said on the assassination. So we know via some of our findings, Radcliffe has done an incredible job with releasing the information that actually largely does show that the CIA not only lied and blocked Congress's efforts to investigate the assassination, but also too that, they had some not so good people over at the agency who I do believe were implicated in the assassination of President Kennedy. So some incredible findings there, but, we are also too at the same time, and this has massive historical significance, but at the same time, we're also opening up an investigation into the Martin Luther King assassination. And so we do have people that have agreed to testify in that hearing. As you know, there's been declassified documents. And then also we cover the UAPs as well and RFK. So we've been working very closely with the CIA to help obtain those documents. I think that Radcliffe has an incredible perspective in saying that, the sins of past directors are not going to be something that he's going to accept, and that he does believe in full transparency that the American people deserve to know the truth of what happened. So there is full compliance with these different agencies with the president's executive order for the first time in U.S. history.
Nothing short of extraordinary. Thank you for that, Congresswoman. And how can we continue to watch that as those are being released? Is there a timeline with the Russian government sending over those documents?
So I just found out literally an hour ago. So this is the first time that we've actually gotten hard promise for delivery of those documents. So we actually try to pick those up today. But because of the schedule, we're obviously going to be over at the White House for the Presidential Medal of Freedom for Charlie. We are going to be obtaining those documents next week, and then it'll be as quickly as we can get them uploaded. So within the next 2 weeks, the American people should be able to go through those filings. What's interesting is that the Russian government actually had given copies to the federal government at the funeral for Kennedy, and we never obtained those documents, which I believe the CIA destroyed them. What I also think is interesting is that a lot of people don't know, but Kennedy actually had a backdoor conversation the entire time with the then leader of Russia, and he did not want nuclear war. And so he was actually back channeling peace talks, negotiations with Russia at that time during the Cold War. And a lot of people within the intelligence community at the time were trying to paint him as a pro-communist sympathizer, when in actuality, he simply just didn't want war. So interesting times we're living, because I think that a lot of the historical wrongs that have been done in the 60s are being corrected now.
Remarkable. And history does rhyme, as they say, with President Kennedy and then President Trump with the Russia hoax. We know that narrative. And you did say, I believe a few months ago regarding JFK specifically, that you do believe, based on this redacted and declassified intelligence, that there were two shooters potentially. Is that still true based upon...
Yeah, so there's no redactions in some of the documents that have been uploaded. And if there are, we've been pushing back to have the unredacted copies uploaded. But yeah, based on the evidence that we have found and based on direct testimony from one of the doctors in the actual operating room that Kennedy was brought to in Dallas, there were two shooters, without a doubt.
Wow, breaking news here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Please come back and see us, Congresswoman Paulina Luna. Enjoy today. Enjoy remembering Charlie. It is Charlie Kirk Remembrance Day, and we will be celebrating that this week. But we appreciate your time coming on the live desk.
Thank you.